The cabin lights flickered once, then twice, before the unsettling silence set in. At 30,000 feet, silence was not comforting, it was terrifying. The steady hum of the engines felt distant now, almost muted, and the comforting voice of the captain over the intercom was nowhere to be heard. Passengers glanced around in confusion, their chatter fading into tense whispers. In row 17, a 12-year-old girl named Emily Carter sat frozen, her heart pounding as she sensed something was very, very wrong. Emily had always been fascinated by airplanes. Her father, a former Air Force pilot, had taught her the basics of flying on a small simulator at home. She could recognize cockpit controls, knew how to read an altimeter, and understood how to level a plane. But that knowledge had always been a fun game between father and daughter, never something she imagined would be tested in real life. Yet, as she looked toward the front of the aircraft, where the cockpit door stood ominously closed, she felt a creeping dread. Suddenly, a flight attendant rushed down the aisle, her face pale. She disappeared behind the cockpit door, and when she emerged moments later, tears welled in her eyes. We need help," she stammered to another crew member. The words weren't loud, but Emily heard them. "Both pilots are unconscious." That sentence alone could drain the blood from anyone's face, and it did. A murmur of panic swept through the cabin. The oxygen masks had not deployed, but the altitude was still dangerously high for anyone to be unconscious without warning. Emily's mind raced. Hypoxia, a sudden pressure drop. She didn't know for sure, but she knew the airplane couldn't fly itself forever. People around her clutched armrests, some praying, others crying quietly. The flight attendants began calling out for anyone with flying experience. No one answered. Emily's hands trembled, but something inside her, something her father had always called her, pilot's heart, began to take over. She unbuckled her seatbelt, stood, and took a deep breath. I can try," she said, her voice quivering but determined. The crew stared at her, some in disbelief, others as if they had nothing left to lose. Moments later, she was ushered toward the cockpit. The moment she stepped inside, her senses were assaulted with flashing lights and warning beeps. The captain and first officer sat slumped forward, their breathing shallow but steady. Emily's eyes darted to the controls, the familiar layout she had only ever seen in books and her father's simulator. "Okay, Emily," she whispered to herself, "you can do this." The first thing she did was grab the headset. "Hello, can anyone hear me? This is Emily Carter. I'm 12 years old, and I'm at the controls. Both pilots are unconscious." There was a pause, then a voice crackled through the radio. Calm, steady, and reassuring. "Emily, this is air traffic control. We hear you. We're going to get you home. Just stay calm and follow my instructions exactly." Her heart steadied a little. The controller's voice became her anchor. They guided her through checking the autopilot, monitoring altitude, and adjusting the throttle. But turbulence hit, sudden and violent, rattling the entire aircraft. Passengers screamed. Emily gripped the yoke, her small hands fighting to keep the nose level. "You're doing great," the controller urged. "Just ease it back. That's it. You've got this." Time blurred. 10 minutes felt like an hour. Every movement she made was deliberate, echoing her father's long-ago advice, slow as smooth, and smooth as fast. Emily called out airspeed, heading, and altitude like she had done in the simulator, each word strengthening her confidence. The controller informed her they were guiding her toward the nearest airport for an emergency landing. That meant she would have to do the one thing she had never practiced outside a video game, land a real passenger jet. As the runway came into view, Emily felt her chest tighten. "Emily, listen to me," the controller said firmly. "We're going to walk through this step by step. You're not alone." She could hear her father's voice in her mind too, calm and warm. "It's just like landing a bird on water. Steady hands, steady heart." The descent was rough at first. The plane swayed, and alarms blared when she dropped too quickly. She corrected, easing back on the controls, fighting every instinct to overreact. The wheels touched down harder than any passenger had likely felt before, but they were down. The brakes screeched, the plane shuddered, and then, stillness. Cheers and sobs filled the cabin. Emily sat back, her arms limp, tears streaming down her cheeks. By the time emergency crews boarded, the pilots were regaining consciousness, likely victims of a sudden oxygen system failure. They learned that Emily's quick thinking had saved not only the passengers but possibly the crew themselves. As she stepped out of the cockpit, strangers reached for her hands, thanking her, hugging her. A woman pressed her own necklace into Emily's palm, whispering, "You're our miracle." Later, when reporters asked how she managed to stay calm, Emily smiled shyly and said, "My dad always told me, in a storm, someone has to take the controls. I just didn't know it would be me." And somewhere in that moment, the passengers knew they'd witnessed something rare, not just bravery, but the heart of a leader who, even at 12 years old, refused to let fear be the one flying the plane.